Hi, it's Anson. I'm at my local reservoir, more specifically the spillway, watching the herons feed on fish, looking for a good photograph, a good shot. But I'm not finding anything up here. The fence is in the way and nothing's coming close. So I've changed tactics and I'm going to try to go down there and perhaps find a long exposure shot using a neutral density filter or a piece of welding glass. Either way, I think it'll be a lot of fun and more interesting than what I'm seeing up here, and I thought I'd take you along for the shot. One thing I like about long exposure shots is if you can get that water nice and soft looking, it just creates a really great effect. So a couple of weeks ago I started experimenting with a piece of welding glass and a couple of rubber bands, and I had really good success. I like combining something like a nice foundation, like a rock, with water spilling around it, and I can take these exposures for sometimes over 60 seconds with a very high f-stop, like an f22, and a very low ISO, and you can get some really great effects. It just makes the water look like ice or glass. It's really beautiful. And so I've come down to the low part of the spillway now to look for that kind of structure. Sometimes I'll bring my waders so I can get out and find a really great spot. This was kind of an impulse stop, but I think I'm going to be able to find something without even getting wet. Okay, here's how I'm going to set up this shot. You need a tripod because you've got a long exposure. Today I'm using the Sue. It's a compact little tripod, but it's going to be okay because it comes with a little carabiner on the end, and I'm going to use my bag to weight it down because I want to make sure that nothing moves my camera during this exposure. Not the wind, not me, not anything. So I'm going to be very conscious of that. The camera I'm using today is the Olympus OMD 10 Mark II. This is not a super expensive camera, but it is one that I really like. I like the size. It's a mirrorless 4/3 camera, and it has all of the controls that I need to get the shots that I like. The lens I'm going to use today is my 17mm Olympus 1.8. Love this lens. It's a great prime lens. It's on my camera most of the time. If I'm not using this lens, I'm typically using the Olympus 45mm. Love those two lenses. It's going to give me the sharpness that I need for this shoot. In order to get these long exposures that I'm going to want to get that moving water, I'm going to use something like this. This is a piece of welding glass that I got off of Amazon for $2 or $3. I set it up against my lens and use these rubber bands on each end to literally wrap it around the camera. Now, I've been doing that for a while and have gotten really good results. The results tend to be a green tint, but you can fix that in post with even the most simple and basic of photo editing software, which you probably already have on your computer. And I'll show you how to do that in post. I've gone ahead and also brought this. This is a B&W 110 neutral density filter. It's a very dark neutral density filter that's going to give me a similar effect, but better than just using regular welding glass. Now these guys are not $2 or $3. This one costs $52 on Amazon. But since I really like this kind of photography, it was well worth it for me. Now this neutral density filter just simply screws right on to my lens. Make sure you get the right mount. These filters come in different sizes that will fit your lens, and that gives you a nice connection without having to use rubber bands or anything like that. I'm real excited about this purchase, and I'm real excited to see the results. Let's take some photos. Okay, so I'm set up for my photo. I'm focused in on that log. I've got my tripod set up. I'm going to be taking my bag and clipping it in underneath for more stability since it's a lightweight tripod. I've taken my ISO down to 200. That makes it less sensitive to light, therefore longer exposure. I've also put my f-stop at 22. I'm in aperture priority, and that allows less light through the lens by closing that aperture down. Hence, longer exposure time. It's recommending a 60-second exposure we're going to do that and see what we get. So while I was waiting for those exposures, I looked around a little bit and I found another shot here. I think I can get some good movement on there. What I have to be worried about are these little weeds and things like that. Now, it's a bit of a windy day, and those things are going to move around and cause blur. That might be the effect you're looking for, it might not. Just be conscious that every little piece of movement in your shot at 60 seconds is going to be greatly exaggerated. So I'm going to set up, and I think I'm going to focus on the end of this log and try to get as much of those ripples in as I possibly can. I think this foam is going to add a really unique look, and I think I'm going to like it. We're going to give it a try. Now here's a shot that I'm shooting at f5.6 through the reeds, focused on the log, trying to get a little movement on the reeds, but not so much that it's distracting to the picture. And we'll see how that turns out. Well, my work is done here. Now it's time to take these photos to the computer and manipulate them in post using very basic software, nothing like Lightroom or Photoshop or some of these expensive programs that you buy, just using what came with my computer. Okay, so I'm in iPhoto. I'm an Apple user. This is the program that came with my computer. I do regular updates on it. This is what I've got. I don't subscribe to Photoshop or Lightroom at this time. I get the results that I like just using this program right now. What I did was, before I left the creek, I took a quick, just handheld snapshot. It's not even really in focus, but I wanted to capture that first log that we took a picture of and freeze that water. This is a typical snapshot. We set up the tripod, we put on that neutral density filter. Here's what we got. Now I've edited this one a little bit just by using the RAW file instead of the JPEG and changing the contrast and the exposure just a little bit. So here's what you can expect if you're just walking around taking pictures. Here's what you can expect if you set up a little bit, and I think the results are really worth it. I'm really happy with this photo here. I really like the way it turned out. I love the look of that water, and I hope you do too. Let's go ahead and edit one together. I took the photos and put them in a photo album so they are all grouped together. And a couple of them that I really liked, let's bring it up, was this log. This is the second setup that we did. And I really like the looks of the way the water's streaking. And that's a different exposure there. I played around with different apertures. But I kind of like the streaks in that one, in this first one. It's a little dark, but we can change that. I'm going to hit the edit button. I don't do much editing. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my RAW file under Image, because there was a little J next to it. I don't know if you noticed in the lower left corner it said J. That means that I was looking at the JPEG. Now I'm bringing up the RAW, and that's probably going to lighten it up right off the bat a little bit. It does. Brings out some of that color. You can see a little bit of that green tint, but not too much. Not too much. One thing I like to do is I like to crop almost all of my photos and get them from a square ratio more to a widescreen kind of version. And then what you do is you can move around. I want to get as much of that water in as possible. I think that looks pretty good. I almost wish that this log could be off center a little bit. Let's play around with that a little bit. I like using the rule of thirds. And then if I bring that up, yeah, I'm losing too much of that log, so I'm going to bring it back. Bring it back a little bit. And then I want as much of that water in there as possible. Let's take a look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I want to adjust the color a little bit and the exposure.
And so down here a little bit, you can just hit this adjust tool. Now you can have the computer do an automatic adjustment just by hitting that enhance at the top. And I'll hit that real quick and we'll see what happens here. That's what it gives me. Command Z will undo that. And we'll go back to adjust. And we'll play around with these bars here. Now, you can individually adjust exposure, highlights, things like that, saturation, contrast. You can convert it to black and white. But if you grab these top, at least with iPhoto, you can play around with exposures, just like that. And it adjusts all of these things automatically. Now I'm going to bump up the color a little bit. Don't be afraid to experiment because we're on the computer and you can always go up here, revert to original, and just go back to whatever you had originally. Now, on adjustments, if you hit this add button, if you're using iPhoto, you can get other things, vignette, sharpen, definition, noise reduction. I like this little white balance when I'm using the neutral density filter. And then down at the bottom here, you can hit skin tone, temperature, tint, things like that. We're just going to stick with neutral gray and we're going to see what happens. I'm going to hit this little dropper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find something that I think is a neutral gray or a white. And I'm going to go over here in this reflection. I'm going to hit it and I'm going to see what happens. I don't really like that. So I'm going to hit Command Z and it's going to bring it back. And you can experiment. You can try that different areas. Maybe go up here, hit that. It gives it kind of a blue theme. Yeah, I don't know if I like that, but try different things. You know, hit the levels button. Experiment with these programs. People think they're very basic, but they're not. They're not basic at all, and you can really do some great stuff with them. Right now, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave it the way it is. It's going to save my progress. That's what that dark circle is up there. It's saving the changes I've made. I'm going to go back. So now I've got a couple of photos that I'm really happy with. I'm really happy with that guy. I'm really happy with that guy. I love the look of that. I might go back and play around with that one. That's got some really good potential. And then if you remember, we took some photos of the reeds as well. With that long exposure, it makes those reeds kind of move. The wind moved them a bit, and you can see some movement in there. I took a couple here. I kind of like that one. Out of those three, it's definitely my favorite. Go ahead and edit that, and we'll see what we get. First thing I do is take it to RAW. Hit the crop button. I like to bring it down. I think I'm going to focus a little more on that log. I'm framing the log, getting rid of a few of the buds that were to the left there, and allowing us to see more of that smooth water. Then I can come over to the adjust. Play around with some color. Really get it to pop. I'm really getting those greens and those reeds to pop, and it sharpens up the log as well. Play around with exposure a little bit. That kind of mutes it. If I bring it down, if I bring the exposure up, it almost blows it out. I'm not going to play around with the exposure too much on this one. I like that right there, just a little underexposed. I like that. And that just took about a minute. Not not too complicated. Please post-process your photos. Don't stick stuff out there that you're doing if you're a hobbyist like me without touching them up or being critical of them. Sometimes I go out, I don't like any of these photos. To be honest, out of what I see here today, I'm probably going to play a little more with these two guys and see what I get. I might get something I like, and I think the winner probably going to be that one. Probably going to be that one. Out of the photos I got today, I really like that one a lot, and it's a lot of fun. Long exposure photography using welding glass or neutral density filters. Get out there and play around, take some photos, have some fun. We'll see you next time.